Okay. Oh, cool. Wait, I'm just waiting for LinkedIn to. It should say that we're live. So I'll make sure. Okay. Now we're live on StreamYard. And I'm going to refresh and make sure. There we go. Now we're live. Okay. Great. Okay, let me shut that. Okay, so let me do a quick intro. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Accelerator Insider, where we explore the minds behind accelerators, incubators, mentor studios. We interview innovation leaders on how they're building businesses for today and the future. Thank you so much for joining me, Tatiana from LearnLaunch Fund and Accelerator. So thanks for taking this Thursday morning to talk with me about what you're doing.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here with you today.
And so I think, folks can go on your LinkedIn and kind of see, everything about you and kind of read about you online as well. And so I wanted to take this time really to kind of understand how you think about the space. I think you've been in the space more broadly and also from a more global perspective for a while. And so really looking forward to getting your perspective, particularly in a sector that I think folks, don't really know that much about. It's probably not the sexiest venture topic in a sense, but it really is ubiquitous. I mean, it affects us all because it's really about the core of education, learning, and training, and that's basically what we all do all the time as human beings on Earth. So it's very tied to kind of how we live our lives. And so I'm excited to kind of talk with you about the space and wanted to kind of just go back to the beginning of your career from what I understood or saw. And you really kind of, it looked like, had a policy, like you started your career really kind of from a policy perspective. You were focusing on international security, accountability. This could be like grad school and post and perhaps, and so your first job. I'd love to just know what led you, how'd you start there? It was a very interesting kind of category and topic. What made you kind of start with that for your career?
Yes, totally. This is looking back now more than 20 years. I guess the motivation for me was to change the world in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that the best place for that, for exploring these big ideas and making these big influences, would be diplomacy. And this is what I pursued as my education. I studied international affairs, and for a very long time, I also did some internships, etc. I thought that this will be my career pathway, and learned a lot about global problems, peace and world hunger and whatnot, and including some research work that I did back in Germany at one of the leading research institutions in Berlin around international security matters involving my home country, Ukraine. That was really extremely, extremely interesting. And then at one point when I was done with college and was looking for job options, I was really very curious and open-minded. So I was going after multiple things. I was talking to an embassy. I was talking to some international organizations, and I was talking to a venture capital firm that was based in Switzerland that had a job that had a lot of elements of that included international travel, that included an opportunity for me to be able to speak many languages that I was learning in college, etc. And also had this element of entrepreneurship that was very, very new to me, that I didn't know about. And I decided to just jump into that cold water, and thinking that I already know about how to build a relationship. They were looking for someone who would be like an ambassador for them in a private company setting. So that part I felt comfortable about. And then there was this whole world of entrepreneurship and investing that I didn't know anything about, and then I've been learning about for the past 20 years. So it was a little bit of a coincidence of circumstances, and really like this wild young person, not really maybe knowing 100% what that is, knowing a little bit, and then trying to find a place where you can apply some of the skills that you've learned and that you've built as a student.
Well, I love that, and it's really wonderful because, you know, in the U.S. we talk a lot about like politics, but just even the fact that like diplomacy, like sometimes you think about the words and like the meaning behind the word and what the goal is, right? And like the definition of kind of politicking comparatively to diplomacy, and what that means for how we operate, how we work together, how we think about partnerships and relationships. I think, you know, so much of venture is a relationship game, right? And so are there any things from that time that you felt like really mapped and matched the experience you had in venture capital, or things that, you know, or anything that really maybe surprised you about that work before you transitioned over to venture capital?
I will talk about skills, and I was really positively surprised to see that there were a lot of transferable transferable things over there. And I think that, as you've mentioned, in the world of diplomacy, international relations, you think about communication, you think about reading the room. I think that the underlying thing is also about empathy, right? So you come in and you try to understand the problem and try to understand what's the context, how to best navigate that context. I think that this is the key of what we were thinking about a lot when we were going through school, through college times. And this was very much applicable and transferable, and helped me to actually plug in there and learn a lot while working with entrepreneurs. And I think that this is still one of the key skills that any investor needs to have. You have to be able to listen, empathize, understand each entrepreneur in order to be able to, you know, understand how you can be helpful. Is this the case for you or not? So I guess that this is my biggest learning from that time that I can talk about.
No, I think that's super useful. And I think we hear that a lot from the investor perspective in terms of, you know, the listening and the empathy. Sometimes we get caught up in we give a lot of advice. You know, I think people are, you know, you hear the same story because you're experiencing the same story as the investor. Is brand new for the entrepreneur, but you're like, yeah, we've been here before. And so, you know, being able to like let them get that out as more of a mechanism for how they think than to kind of really course correct them is really, you know, there's like this kind of give and take on that. And so that makes a ton of sense in terms of just like, I think it's particularly now as venture is like more diverse and more categories and a couple of different kind of new pieces to it, like that listening is becoming more and more critical. So you were in venture, and so this, to your point, maybe it was just happenstance. You know, when I was looking over your LinkedIn, I was like, oh well, it feels relatively strategic because you kind of went from, you know, still that interest in diplomacy and international relations, moving into a venture firm, and then moving into another venture firm that actually was you know, in the US and in Europe. And so, yeah, was this intentional to kind of understand the US ecosystem or to enter the US ecosystem? Was it, you know, because I know that the venture ecosystem is just so different. Now it's more similar, but it was much more different in the past in terms of who was funding, what they were funding. Even the valuations are still different, but, you know, things like that. So what was the impetus for that? Was that just interest or just like by chance?
So I will tell you that I've explored these venture ecosystems around the world. Through my previous work experience, we were going to different places, and I was developing markets in different places, including India, Israel, Turkey, Eastern Europe, etc. And we were also coming to the US. And this is, of course, the state-of-the-art place, right? So everybody is, excuse me, everybody is looking at what's going on here, for trends, for, you know, new instruments that are being in place, etc. So I was always very excited about this market. Now the transition was a combination of my curiosity, continued interest, but also some coincidence of circumstances. So we moved to the United States with my family for my husband's work, and I continued for some time to work for the Swiss company that I worked for before, and then just naturally transitioned into the local environment, got connected. The ecosystem in Boston is absolutely amazing, very vibrant. You can go to community events every evening. It was pre-COVID, luckily. It was 10 years ago, almost. And it was just absolutely amazing to connect with all these folks, explore what was going on here. And then at one of these events, I bumped into my current partner, Gene Hammond, who's an incredible leader in this space that started very courageous, started investing in education 10 years ago when not even every school had internet access. And she was already thinking about technology, including her multi-year support of female entrepreneurs in general. And I just got really impressed by what she has done, and also her visions. And we started to do some little work together, and it grew into a partnership that has been lasting for 8 years now.
I mean, that's beautiful. And so I'd love to, because to your point of, based on venture, like ed tech is pretty rare. There's not that many folks even doing ed tech really. And I saw that you're an advisor for Care Academy, and so like we love Helen, and so like we're like big fans, and so it was interesting to me because I was like, okay, what brought you to? Was it really your partner that brought you into ed tech as a sector? Or did you have an interest in it on your own beforehand? And so, because I think it's a hard niche to enter, because it's similarly differently. It's not regulated in the same way, but it has its own barriers, right? In ed tech. And so I'd love to understand kind of, is that what brought you into the space? And then when you were in it, like, what was the learning curve like? Because it is that, ed in the US is a whole different game.
What is the curve like? But these are great questions. I didn't know much about education before I started doing some work with Gene, and it was a period in my life that I had a little more time, and it was a thought process. I thought a lot about these things, and also about venture, about impact, about what else can you do, in addition to thinking about, okay, what's the risk return profile of this thing looks like? What's the IRR? What can I bring back to my limited partners? There is so much more to it in education. And this is what fascinates me, continues to fascinate me, and continues to motivate me to be in this space. So it's a continuous learning curve. I am still on a learning curve. So it's been 8 years. I keep learning every day from every entrepreneur. I want to be very humble and just to listen and learn from every entrepreneur that comes to us and tells their story. They know so much more about their markets. It's like an open book that has unlimited number of pages. Helen was an interesting story, a real highlight for me 8 years ago. It was really Gene. I just had my first child. I wasn't leaving my house a lot. And Gene called me one day and said, you have to work with her. I just started to be a venture partner at LearnLaunch, but I was like on and off between the night shifts at home. And the experience with Helen was the first time for me to see what entrepreneurship looks like on the ground, and what like really hands-on role of an investor or a support role as an investor could look like. At that time, she just made her first 2 hires.
Wow.
Basically, all of her videos were done in a little room where she herself and her partner Madhuri were actors in those videos. So these are like very, very, very early stage.
Yeah.
They were just raising their first bigger round. There was a lot of work. Every time we would meet, she would very often come to me to meet, which I'm really grateful for because I couldn't move around. And we would work on many, many things. So we had to build a lot of processes, think from very, very high level strategy to very, very little operational things. And it was really exciting because you could see how your advice is impacting this company's life on a daily basis. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, yeah, and it's great to actually hear that because I think a lot of folks, venture is interesting, right? Because the math game of it, you don't get to spend. I mean, as you scale and get bigger and bigger funds, you don't really have the capacity to support companies in the way necessarily that you want, and you have to kind of pick and choose how you spend your time. And so, but I think a lot of folks go into venture because they really enjoy that experience of working with the founder really deeply. And so, how do you manage against those two things? I mean, also between the accelerator and the fund, how do you think about how you find time to support founders, and how is that really challenging, or do you feel like you've figured out some kind of method that works for you that gets you to be able to support them at the right level?
So I think that that's just a part of our DNA as LearnLaunch Fund Plus Accelerator to keep doing this work. I'm not alone here, so I have two other partners, Jean and Matt. We have incredible group of venture partners that we involve to work with the companies. We have over 150 mentors that are offering their time and that are experts in different areas in edtech market that we involve too. So it's orchestrating a lot of human resources. We keep doing that because this is our key value driver for these companies. And frankly, to me, also transitioning from a slightly later stage investor to a slightly earlier stage investor was very interesting experience. And I really love it because you are so much closer to
Yeah.
the business than when you are just having an observer role on a board or a board role, or receive an investor update once a year. So here you're really very close to the matter. They are very vulnerable. They come and talk to you about anything, and your brain is just tuned to constantly think about, how can I help you? Who should I introduce you to? Where should I go? Like, I've heard this. How is this helpful to any of the things or any of the companies that I've just been talking to? So it's just a part of our DNA, not really separable from the investment process,
That's good to know, and I think that's for a lot of folks who are the pre-seed, and we're seeing a lot more of these models where they're adding accelerators. I think with the increase of venture capital and micro funds more broadly, and part of it is a de-risking approach, right? It's being able to work with a founder, making sure you can assess the quality of company, support them through the growth, and so on. But I think you guys were probably a little bit early in that. I think the combination of the fund accelerator, outside of like the Techstars of the world, there was like very few folks doing that a decade ago, because it's a lot of work. And I think it's a lot of work.
Yes, that's a lot of work, but this is it pays off. But because this is exactly what you've said, it helps us as investors to de-risk the companies that we invest in and to add a ton of value to them, which is really critical for the stage of the business where they are in.
Exactly. And so I saw on your thing you had this little moment. It was so Ed Inno. So I'd love to know, what is it, what was it, and how'd it go?
Yes, absolutely. So Areno was our, interestingly, it was born during the pandemic, like our little baby that was born during the pandemic. We had a little bit of a slow down. It was also for us a transition from delivering our programs fully in person, on premises, to switching to online. So there were a lot of adjustment going on. And at that time, we also kept thinking about our investment thesis as a fund and where we are in the marketplace and what kind of companies we are looking at. And then there was this question, well, we actually are looking for companies that found product market fit. We want to see some revenue. So we're looking at relatively mature early stage businesses in education. In some cases, you're already 3-4 years into business.
Yeah.
And we continuously are being approached by companies that are much, much earlier than that, or have, can you give me feedback on my idea? And we wanted to create a safe space for them, for these companies, to talk about their ideas, to find the resources, to learn about what it is like to be an edtech entrepreneur, which is running a marathon with a 50-pound backpack on your back.
Yes.
And to hear from others how they do that, what's in the backpack, how to be strategic about your, the distance that you need to cover, and the terrain. So this was the initiation of EdEno. So we created it's a community for very early stage edtech entrepreneurs that are about to, or are idea stage, or maybe they already have a product and the first customer, to talk about their journey and to find the resources to make it less painful, to make it more successful. And we have some good success stories. So we had some programs that we did inside EdEno at the beginning 2 years ago, and I have just seen a company in New York in October that was a set of wireframes and really an idea, 2 women entrepreneurs. And now they have more than $500,000 in revenue, and they won one of the Shark Tanks for workforce upskilling track during the New York EdTech Week. So I hope that they've learned a little bit inside about how to get there. But it's really nice to see that
that's awesome.
They are successful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so I want to spend some time talking about ed tech specifically, because I have a long background in the ed sector. So this actually is a good conversation. But before I do, I wanted to ask one question about the venture partner role, because there's a lot of folks who are trying to get into venture, become a venture partner, and there's some uniqueness about being a general partner. It's I think folks think of it like as a salary increase thing. And in some cases, in a really big venture firm, it could be a little bit of a ladder, but partners are kind of a different structure and tier than the venture partner. It's not like a lateral, it's not like an easy kind of move up. So just wanted to understand, and it could be because of your background in venture previously, how did you make the transition, or how did that even occur between being a venture partner, which is more like an ecosystem support partner, to like actually a general partner in the fund? Was it because you all came together to create the fund in the first place, or did you join it after it was created? I think people in venture who think of it as a career journey are trying to understand how they can move themselves into more of a general partner position in firms.
Yes. So venture partner role, it's a little tricky. I think that the job description really varies and depends on what firm you are talking to. I think that it's a great way to get exposure to venture, and also get familiarized with what's going on, and get familiarized also with the team. And I do believe that in some cases, this is the bench that the firms are having to look for the next potential partner. I do also think that this is a place where another exciting opportunity could pop up for you, because you are working with companies. We see some advisory roles. We see sometimes some operating roles coming into existence as the result of these type of collaboration. So it's a very interesting place where you can apply your skill set that you have while also learning about nitty-gritty venture investing, etc. Although, I have to say that in most cases, it's not, venture partners are not investing roles, right? So they can be informing, support with the diligence, etc. But you're not really participating, or you're not really making an investing decision. But you see it from very, very close by. For me, it was a great start also to get a little more comfortable, since I didn't know EdTech at all. For me, it was a great start to get more comfortable, more acquainted with the space. I've seen that there is a lot of knowledge around entrepreneurship in general that you can that you can transfer and that can be really useful. And then there is still a lot you need to bring depth and build up your expertise in the ad tech space to be like really, really helpful to these companies. So general advice is only as valuable as it is. They really need a very specific advice, these guys. And for me, the transition was, I guess that's the question also to the partners, right? Because they invited me to do this with them on a full-time basis. It wasn't a new fund. This fund was probably about 1.5 to 2 years into business. So I joined them mid in the middle of the track. And now for the third fund, we invited another partner, by the way, who was also a venture partner in the previous fund, and now are running this third fund together. So it's just it's an interesting role, definitely worth exploring. You have to set your expectations right, also in terms of the compensation, etc. It's definitely a very interesting place to be.
Was there any difference in, and you came in on really the early stages of the first fund, was there any difference in raising the second fund versus the third fund? I mean, dollar value maybe included or aside?
Yes, absolutely. So we so our new fund that we are currently raising, the goal is to raise almost three times of what the previous fund was. So our previous fund was relatively small; it was $3 million, and our goal is for the next fund to raise more. And it has a lot to do with how the strategy of the fund looks like, and also the fundraising process is different because you go to different type of funders to raise money for this size.
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit about some of the trends and kind of what your thesis is or how it's evolved, I think. And so, so on the ed tech, so let's talk a little bit about ed tech a bit, and then we talk a little bit also about the LearnLaunch program itself and the accelerator. But and so, like I said, spoiler, like I did a long time ago. I did City Year Philadelphia. I did Workforce for Mayor Nutter in Philadelphia. I worked for School District Philadelphia doing facilities. I worked for Teach for America in Miami, and then I worked with a bunch of superintendents around the U.S. building strategic plans and doing root cause analysis, and then a bunch of other things in higher ed. So, like, I have a very good sense of the ed sector.
Wow,
and kind of,
that's cool.
So I do work with a lot of ed tech entrepreneurs, and because it really can be. It's challenging because, like most industries, when it goes to the institutional side, I mean, when the B2B side, I think consumers are a different game on the ed tech side. And even the HR workforce stuff is a little bit more accessible. But when you go into the traditional education sector, it's very hard to access. Student data is sacred, and so it's really hard to engage. The price points are lower. They have a little bit of the government kind of right to know stuff happening, so it's a lot of transparency, and there's a lot of rules around procurement. There's just a lot of components to being able to work in the ed sector. When you think about what you guys have been doing in LearnLaunch, how have you helped, or how do you think about folks that are coming into LearnLaunch working in the K-12 space? Do you find that to be kind of the hardest area of entry? Do you find that there's the most opportunity there? What have you seen in terms of K-12?
Yes, so we invest in all three big buckets in education, I call them. K-12, higher education, as well as workforce reskilling and upskilling. So in fact, we are seeing education as a continuum. So we think that your ultimate journey as an individual is to have meaningful work, meaningful life. In order to get there, you have to keep acquiring skills, and the skills acquisition starts in K-12. So we start investing in K-12. We think that this is we believe that we will probably make out of our portfolio, about a third of companies are going to be K-12 companies. We think that it's a very interesting market. It's a sizable market. It's close probably to $1 trillion in size in terms of revenue. about $16,000 a year are spent on a per learner in the public sector in the US. Of course, not all of that goes. It includes teacher salaries and facility and whatnot, a lot of other services. But there is not insignificant bucket in that goes into technology too. And we are really excited about it. It has this particular industry and also its view of technology evolution went through an interesting evolution and revolution in the last 2 years and made a lot of progress. And it's a very interesting place to be. We've made over 40 investments, I would say, in K-12 space in the last 10 years. A lot of different pockets, very interesting AI applications that we are seeing right now, and we continue to invest. And in terms of helping companies to navigate, you're absolutely right. It's a difficult market. It's very rigid, very slow. One of the slowest of the three that I mentioned at the beginning. On our end, our key goal is to help companies navigate it faster, delivering them technical knowledge about what the procurement process is, how to navigate it, what are the budgets, what are the cycles, etc., etc., etc. So that's pretty straightforward. On the other hand, also spending a lot of time with each company working on their products, understanding their value proposition, understanding how this translates into a marketing message, understanding who to talk to, who is your buyer, how to talk about the value to the buyer versus to a user versus, and in school setting, you may have more than 2 layers. You can also have an administrator and some sort of a curator in between, etc. So providing them with that knowledge, working really closely with companies working on the messaging, this is what makes the difference for them.
Oh, no, I 100% agree. I mean, so when I first came out of my first job out of grad school was implementing math curriculum, tracking activity of students using this math curriculum. That was a computerized curriculum they would do in their own independent study time and kind of, working with that vendor. And then fast forward to the school district, I was bringing in Chronos. So it's like organizing our whole facilities program, taking Chronos. And we also brought in, because we had a time track system, we had a new system. And we also brought in a facilities management platform and software. And so kind of that was like the back end stuff. And then I remember in district management group where we were doing innovation work, like hyper kind of rapid turnaround, and basically white labeled and scaled a solution that basically tracks student and parent and engagement and different kind of factors across the district from superintendent to teacher. And so do you have any thoughts on, in that case, it's like, that's kind of like a school, like there's like in that kind of list, there's like school-based technology, there's like administrative technology, there's also like curriculum education, and there's like efficiency. Do you have a thought around like within K-12, like where you think the opportunity is? Is it like a teaching and learning things? I think I see a lot of folks coming in with like, we're going to help kids learn better with like more fun and engaging AI. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, it really needs help. Like, transportation right now is a hot mess, and like that department needs tons of help, to get up to speed. Do you have a sense of where you think the opportunities are, or where the need maybe is?
Yes, and by the way, transportation, one of our portfolio companies is crunching exactly that part of the market with technology to make it more efficient. So we think that there are many different pockets of opportunities inside K-12. There is still, even though we are looking at 10 exciting years of technology coming in, we see a lot of little fragmented, like little companies that are just in this region or here or there, and schools continue to be hungry for more products, and we can see that with. So to give you just an example, we invested recently in a company that's a K-12 company that's teaching STEM to very young learners, starting at the age of 5. And they have a very interesting very interesting approach. They are very smart about how to support the teacher. And I think that this is one of the reasons why they are so successful and why the adoption is so good for their product. They just started about a year ago and are currently in more than 60 schools in several states here in the United States. So it's there are opportunities on the curriculum side. There are opportunities on the assessment side. I think that there are also opportunities, and especially now with what AI, the capabilities that AI can bring, is to bring the learning experience and make it truly personalized. Just think about that. We have already a ton of content. We have a ton of silos that with some pockets of data that are sitting in different places that are not talking to anyone. And layer AI on top of it, and you can create really new experience and connect a lot of dots in this fragmented, highly fragmented space. I think teacher, especially teacher support, right? For teacher to be more efficient. This is, by the way, one of the places where AI is currently showing real results, is to help them prep the lessons much faster, find the information much faster, etc. It's just the beginning. There are so many more opportunities where we will see the power of this this new technology.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think the thing folks need to always remember is, like, AI is a tool. Like, I mean, it has more capabilities to be beyond that, as we know, but I think in many cases it's really a tool to be utilized. I think I talked to a lot of founders who are like, oh, we're an AI this. I'm like, well, everyone's an AI that, because like we have to be. It's part and parcel of, of the tech stack that's required to do business. And so that can't, though it is value add, it can't be the differentiating factor necessarily. And of course, there's some ways to structure data, and you have some things there that you can kind of hold more maybe IP around, or even some moats around. But fundamentally, like, everyone's kind of doing it and using it. So what are you seeing in terms of some of the most innovative ways people are actually using AI to differentiate themselves, compared to just kind of using it to say they're using it?
That's a very interesting question. I will start also with just saying that probably 4 years, even 5 years ago, we always, when we open applications, one of the questions that we ask the companies is, do you use AI is it a part of your technology, and explain what that is. And not only, so we have also other technical questions that we are asking. And I would say that 5 years ago, there were not, maybe about 40% of the companies that would say yes. Yeah. In the last cycle, it was 100%, all of them. Yeah. So not all of it is real, but all of them are thinking about it. And this is awesome. This is awesome. It's a great tool, and it can elevate a lot of stuff that we have already built and make it more efficient. It's a little, I think, early to say in the early stage, right? In the early for the early stage companies to say which things are already working, because they are still in experimentation phase, right? We can see some interesting applications for reading. We can see some interesting applications in our companies, for instance, in special ed around teacher support. We can see some interesting applications of AI in our portfolio in the workforce space, where really large sets of labor market data is being analyzed to truly understand what the demand side of the market looks like, and a thought process behind it, how to translate this to the supply side, and how to organize the supply side so the two parts of the market can finally meet and start talking about skill-based hiring, for instance. So we can see a lot of interesting early indications and early usage of the product that look exciting. I think that probably large companies out there that are sitting on humongous amounts of data, like 2U, PowerSchool, etc. I think that they have also some very interesting insights into what's going on, and some AI applications that they are using both internally as well as gradually opening to the educators to use. But I think that probably in most cases, it's fair to say that we are still in an early experimentation phase, and it will take some time to understand where it truly works and where not.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to go a little off script here and ask a question for you, which is, so, data. Okay. So we start with big data. The problem I would say 2000 to 2010, maybe even 12, was like, we wanted to first just amass data. We're like, we just want all this data to help inform what we do and think about. And then in the last decade, like 2012 or so, it became like, well, we want to structure data. We actually have a ton of data, right? And I think even in 2018, we really saw people saying, like, we actually have enough, actually. Like, that's not what we're trying to buy. What we're trying to really understand is structure it and get the insights from it to help us make decisions. I spend a lot of time focusing on real-time insights, like how close to now can we get an understanding of something. When it comes to the idea of the insight, what are your thoughts on the value of that as a unit of measure? Because a lot of folks think, well, I'm going to be a data company, like Facebook, is and was, and it was a freemium model where everyone gets on the thing for free, and we take the data and we resell it. And there's all these other reseller marketplaces. We can resell anonymized data. It makes sense kind of in sales, but in these other sectors, we're like, well, what's it being used for? What's the purpose? And now we're getting folks saying we want to have privacy layers as a value proposition to our customers. We don't want to share the data. So I'm trying to understand more about the value of the insight and how compelling that is as part of the business model, the ability to have that data and aggregate it, because it feels like to me that the insight is becoming less valuable because we have so many, just like when we had a lot of data and we needed less data or more structured data. And so now we have insights, and I'm like, do we need all the insights, or are we just in this constant process of compressing information down, if that makes sense? We got an insight, and now we have too many insights, and we're trying to get a new tool that structures it down, which is AI. I don't know. It's a kind of a random thought, but I want to get your thoughts on it, since you're probably seeing a lot of that, because learning is a lot about unlocking an insight, the idea of it functionally.
Yes. So, and I think that you are totally right about that. It's education industry it's just a different animal, right? So you can't really compare it to social media. I wish that there were more gateways there, and less was done with the personal data, less harm in the first place. So we believe that data is very important for each company. In fact, one of the things that we work on when we work with our companies is about helping them how to measure impact of their products. So it's just not about, it's much more complex in education. It's not only about the number of users that you have, of the number of logins that the learners made, and let's just completely forget about anonymizing that, right? But it's also about understanding what's your product, what's the impact of your what's the impact of your product on the learning process, on the learning outcomes, etc. And we believe that if companies understand this early, or start thinking about that early, and start collecting this data early and make it actionable for themselves in the first place, this will make a true difference for their businesses, including helping them grow faster. So being in control, getting these insights for yourself is very, very important for each ed tech company, and especially understanding what impact your product is creating. For that, it's also important to understand your data set, not in isolation, but also in the context of other things. And I think that this is the biggest that are happening inside the school. And this is also, I think, is a big challenge for driving meaningful insights, is to connect the dots between the different contexts and between these different pockets of data that exist there. So why is your performance in math not good today? Well, maybe you didn't have breakfast, but the survey isn't asking that. And I can actually look only at your past performance, and I don't know much about your background, so it's not very valuable. Even the product can have the best data engine, and you can inject the best possible input you have, and it can be really structured, but it doesn't have a big impact on the learner in terms of how it can inform the decision of the teacher around that learner, etc. So that's the challenge of the data. I think that it's in education. You can see there was one very interesting acquisition recently, and it was an acquisition of Learn platform by Instructure. And Learn platform was exactly about that, to help schools understand about how they're using edtech. And if it's being used, what's better used, and also anonymizing this data, making it available for others, etc. So there are some moves in the industry that indicate that big players are actually thinking about it on daily basis, and are expanding their toolkits in this space.
I mean, this is I always think about the quality of the answers based on the quality of the question, and so I remember being in grad school and, I was at policy masters, and everyone was doing, picking what their research was, and everyone was talking about pre-K and student learning. I'm like, don't we know the answer to this? And my person was like, haven't we solved this problem? Don't we know the answer to this? And so sometimes I wonder about is an ed sector, are we asking the right question? And it's completely okay to do iterative evolution of things. Things do need to become more efficient. Things do need to become smoother. We do want, as humans, less friction in our environment. I always say, if you want to, the fastest way to evolve the soul is to become an entrepreneur, because it's the creative mechanism, and it forces you to come to face all these things and work through them and create something out of nothing. And so it's do you think there are, what kind of really good questions do you think you've been hearing people talk about or think about when it comes to student learning, student performance, future of work? Is anyone out there asking what we consider really meaningful questions around how to evolve the space using technology as, part of that solution?
Wow, this is a this is a really really hard question.
You don't have to, it's okay if you don't, because I have not either. So I didn't want to stop. I wasn't trying to stump you. It wasn't a trick question. But but to your point earlier, it was that I find that oftentimes is that we kind of get caught in this conversation. So because I worked in the ed sector, I did this massive research study at LAUSD about English language learners, about how they were behind in reading at second grade. Well, we come to find out they have all these theses about why they're struggling with reading, and they don't want to blame anyone. It's not but it's some people think it's the teacher, some people think it's all this different noise. what you come to find out is that in 1 year, these kids are going from, at the end of first grade, they're reading at a level of halfway through second grade. And then they go into summertime and their parents don't speak English and they're just hanging out having kids summer.
Yeah.
And they come into second grade and you find out that they're now back to halfway in first grade. And all this narrative is around like, we have to make sure these kids are learning, or they can't learn, or they're slow, all these. And it's like, no, they were just having like a second grade kid summer, and they weren't like, and so then you go, are we like creating wild ways to solve simple problems? And like, how much are we making a case for something to make a case for it versus asking a better question, which is like, well, why is it happening? Like, oh, they just need to be like reading with a friend like once or twice a week in the summertime, and like they won't have the summer slide on the English language. Yeah, so that's why I bring that up. It's like, I find that that's been the challenge for most industries, is that we're sometimes in a bubble to the point where we're not really asking. We're asking about improvement, but we're not really asking about like the fundamental, like a principal question around like, but why is this even existing?
Yes. So I believe that educators are very aware about these, about the circumstances of their learners, that one size doesn't fit all, that it's very, very complex. Learning process is a social process that's very, very complex. We don't have a technology that can take out of, let alone one person's brain, a teacher, what they know, and if it's a teacher with 30 years of experience, and then put it into a platform and then have it mimic them, let alone to, mimic generations of knowledge around learning science and now what we know about brain science, etc. But I think that technology can help make this, so free up potentially teacher from doing some things that they maybe shouldn't be doing. Think about the time that they spend on some admin crap every day, and have them spend time with the kid doing what they are really good at, being a teacher, and also being the person that understands the context of that kid best of all. So I would say this is a very high level, slightly idealistic, but I think that this is what that's the thing, is that in many cases that this is where also the resistance from schools comes from, right? So you ask them, oh, this is a great product, and it's like, well, I don't have time in my life to actually use this, right? So for entrepreneurs that are building products, it's about being able to deliver value through very, very easy to use products that have a lot of teacher support. So teacher as not only the learner, but also the teacher as a center piece of their universe, and also thinking about broader context. So thinking out of the box, not just in your one little domain, okay, in terms of the reading skills, but thinking broader about. There's so many. We're seeing looking at companies, and we are often like, wow, if you could combine A, B, and C, this could be a really, really powerful product that could be so much bigger than three standalone little companies, right? So someone is doing great work in assessments and is actually seeing things that are very, very relevant across disciplinary. So if you're building curriculum and you can combine or tap into the data that these companies generating, you can be so much better and deliver so much greater value to your customers and your learners.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of cross-pollination or participation, I think, in the ed sector. I think companies coming together, it's one of the industries where it really benefits them to work together in support of the student, and it makes it easier for districts to engage with them as well as a singular entry point or solution versus all these like multiple micro component parts, which I think can get really complex for the principal and the district and the teacher, depending on how the budgets are split and how the contracts go and all the different little things that happen in that process. I want to take a minute before we to just talk about LearnLaunch as well, and just if you want to just share a little bit about what the accelerator is and how does it work, and who's a great kind of applicant for the program.
Totally. So I think that there are three key messages about LearnLaunch Fund and Accelerator and our investment thesis. So first of all is that we come to this business with very deep knowledge and belief and understanding that it's really, really hard to build an edtech company. Very hard. And we, over the past 10 years, we've gathered a lot of experience around how to be successful in this space, and we help entrepreneurs go that pathway. Second of all, we believe that there are many reasons to invest, many good reasons to invest in diverse entrepreneurs. Not only do they perform better, but also, especially in case with education, we know that diverse entrepreneurs have lived experiences of inequalities in education settings and are better positioned to build better products to fix this market. And we are very proud of the fact that 66% of the entrepreneurs that we've supported in the past 10 years, and it's over 80 companies, are either female or BIPOC-led companies. And third of all, we believe that measuring and understanding impact metrics leads to better business sustainability and growth. And we spend a lot of time with companies when they go through the program talking about that and understanding how to build a stage-appropriate impact measurement framework and start collecting the meaningful data that will help grow your business from early days as you continue to build your product. So these are the three core things about the investment thesis. We're looking for companies that across all three segments, K-12, higher education, workforce reskilling and upskilling, that have diverse teams that found product market fit. For us, product market fit means that your product is in the market, it's working, it's being used by the customers. And these customers are already started generating some amount of revenue. We've spent a couple $100,000. We really look at, we look at it case by case. That's it. So we mostly US-based companies, but we also look at international markets as we think that there are some interesting opportunities out there too.
Got it. And then when it comes to talk about so I haven't heard the term impact measurements lately, and ed tech. So is that language specific because it's ed tech, or are you really looking for impact measurements beyond like standard KPIs because it's the language that the space uses to assess value? Where did that use come from?
I guess it's both. So we really we ask companies about how they think about their impact when we take them into the program, and then we help them. So we ask them, where do you think your impact is? Do you have empirical evidence of that, etc.? And then as they go through the program, we help them to actually break it down. We talk about theory of change, how that applies to their particular business, what to measure, when to measure, how to measure, how to find resources to do that. So we believe that this is a great value add, and that this really is important in education space. And then our impact measurement framework, it evolves. So we are an early stage. We're also thinking a lot about what do we want to measure, how do we measure the impact of our work, and also impact at the level of each company, which is very, very diverse, right? So it's not only the highest level, the most general is how many learners did you reach? Yeah. Can you tell, do you have underserved populations in your learners? Who are they, etc.? Yeah. And then the next deeper level is that what is actual impact? And there's so many flavors of that. It's from greater sense of belonging for higher ed students to more, more efficient workflows for a special ed teacher, how much time you can save, etc. So it's really very, very nuanced
Mhm. Mhm.
when it comes to each company, when we look at each company.
I really love that because I work a lot in the social impact space, but when even not, we think about like traditional impact, like green tech, sustainability, supply chain, things like that. Um, and a lot of times in the fund that I'm currently with, we talk a lot about like this kind of the third way. So it's not a in between kind of traditional venture capital, social impact. There's actually like a whole bunch of founders who where mission or impact is like core part of their value proposition, and mostly in the energy or in the green or clean tech space. And so where in the past they might have been in a social impact category where they would say, we want you to be so tied to the mission that we don't even really want you to grow really at all, to the venture side, which is like, we just care about, our shareholder returns, and so you're kind of pulled in between. There's a whole new crop of folks who are like, wait, no, this is really important. And it's not just important to me, it's important to the customer. And I think what ed tech, what you just illuminated here was like, well, that's always kind of been the case in ed tech based on the category that it's in. The fact that it's working with kids and students, like that theory of change language, that nonprofit type of language, that deeper mission language is always part and parcel of ed tech in its core. And it's just great to hear that, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs who feel really deeply about the change they're creating through their technology, no matter what sector, could take a note from ed tech in the application of theory of change to really hold themselves accountable and get really clear on like what it means and what the measurements should be, so that they aren't either losing their way or under or overvaluing the wrong metric in a sense, right? So I think that's like a really, just want to pin on that, because I think that was a really helpful insight as we talked about around what's happening in ed tech. I have two quick questions left for you, and you feel free to comment on that as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on I do like this masterclass recently on ed tech trends. I'd love to hear what you think are the coming. We didn't talk about workforce and higher ed in this call, but I'd love to hear. I'm sure there's some of that in there. Love to hear what you think the coming trends are for 2024.
Yes. So we talked a lot about AI. So I'm not going to repeat that in detail, but I'm just going to say that this is something that we are really, really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that we will see a lot of new companies, as well as a lot of new companies, new ideas, how to apply it, as well as some early measurements of what's actually going on in the market with those that are already applying that. So this is really exciting, and we do believe that AI will help to connect the dots between the different scattered elements in the industry, especially in the K-12 space, and bring the personalized learning experience to a truly new level. So this is one thing. And then the other thing is we know that ed tech funding landscape evolved a lot in the past decade, and we are excited to see how it will continue evolving. We are encouraged to see big nonprofit philanthropic players stepping in to the game and starting to deploy capital in a slightly different way they were thinking of before. And oftentimes it goes to supporting entrepreneurship and investing directly in the companies in this specific category, which is amazing. We need that. And I believe that we will also see some new funds. So this is the trend that we've seen in the past 3-4 years, new funds coming in. And I think that it's going to continue. Hopefully there will be also a few more that are brave to do the stuff that we are doing really early stage.
Yes, for sure. We can probably talk for a long time about ed tech. But yeah, so last question, I just rapid fire. So this is a question about where would you place your bet? So you can pick one versus the other. Where would you lean? So, and for the next, let's say, foreseeable trend future, first question, would you place your bet on K-12 or in higher ed?
Both. So as I said, we look at this as a continuum. So for us, it's you really have to do, and there are a lot of exciting opportunities and a lot of problems to solve in both of these markets. So we will continue to look at both.
And so where will you place your bet in the upcoming year or two between B2B, straightforward, or more of a B2B2C model?
So here, short answer is the simpler, the better, B2B. We also have a very deep expertise in B2B space and how to sell to schools, how to sell to higher education. So we really understand that we're not scared of it. And in a more nuanced manner, B2B2C, it's complex. It depends a little bit on what market you're in. In some markets, it's really complex to navigate this business model.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's a pretty challenging. It's just a lot of layers in ed tech to work through, pretty much. So I agree. So next one, where you place your bet. So we didn't talk too much about this, but would you place your bet on LXPs, which is basically like learning experiential platforms, or the traditional LLMs? Which one would you go with?
I think that the learning management systems are the past. We are looking at the market with over 1,000 providers that can offer you just the learning management system, and which is amazing because this is a commodity. And we can see this is an infrastructure for entrepreneurs, oftentimes, to start their business in edtech. That's amazing. Future is learning experience platform, because this is about personalizing, this is understanding the context, this is about learning in the flow of work. A lot of big ideas, good ideas, yet to be seen how that exactly is going to be looking like.
Yep. And lastly, where would you place your bet on workforce training and upskilling, or hiring, matching and hiring, recruitment?
So the answer here is skill-based hiring. Absolutely. So we're talking about evaluating candidates based on their skills rather than their education or past work experience. This is a more equitable and fair way to hire people, and it can lead to a much more qualified and engaged workforce. Has a lot of benefits, and it's a story in the US also about embracing a big part of the workforce market. People who have never went to college or maybe dropped out of college, which is a staggering percent of people who actually start the higher ed track, and offer them meaningful employment and upward mobility.
Awesome. Wonderful. This was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it so much. I could talk about EdTech all day because I'm very entrenched in it as well. So I really, really, really appreciate it. And so if anyone listens on the podcast later or on the show, feel free to reach out to either of us on LinkedIn, and or if you email, I'll forward it along as well. And so, yeah, thank you so much for watching another episode of Accelerator Insider, where we go and explore the minds behind accelerators, incubators, and venture studios. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Dominic, for having us and letting us tell us a story.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.